Hello, and welcome to Half the Year in Hell, the podcast for the ones who were made to carry what wasn't theirs. This is a place where we speak from the underworld and help you make your way on out.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for therapy. We are licensed therapists, but we are not your therapist. This podcast is for education and liberation, not diagnosis or treatment. Some episodes contain strong language and content related to trauma. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey, y'all. Welcome to Half the Year in Hell. This is a podcast with me, Sasha, and my wife,
Aunge.
I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm licensed in Maryland and Tennessee.
I'm also licensed in Maryland and Tennessee. I'm a licensed professional counselor.
So we are going to talk about the topic of scapegoating on this podcast. This is a podcast for scapegoats. And we're going to talk about it through a therapeutic lens. We're going to talk about it through a cultural lens. We're going to try to analyze and learn from the role of scapegoat from all angles. And that's because we are both scapegoats. That's what there's a lot of scapegoat, or there's a lot of videos rather about narcissism. And so many people are talking about narcissism, but we thought maybe it would be better to make our podcast be about scapegoats.
Yeah, there's so much content about narcissism, and it's helpful. That's actually how part of the way I got my way out of the systems that I was in. Ooh, sorry, I'm talking too fast. But I'm a little bit anxious. It's a little bit vulnerable for me. But yeah, there's not a lot of people talking about it from the role of scapegoat and what it means to understand that you're a scapegoat, like the beginning of that journey, all the way up into the part where you set boundaries or leave or figure out what your next move is or your next step is.
Yeah. And I think that brings us to the goal, really naturally to the goal of the podcast. What's the goal of the podcast?
Well, we're hoping through our stories, maybe you can gain some insight into your own experience and then figure out what's next for you. Like, ultimately, I'd like to see scapegoats escape.
Yeah, get out.
Get out.
This is a get out podcast.
But for those that can't, or those that have other stuff going on that make it hard, like it's just a podcast for someone to validate your experience. Also, that's I think an integral part of excuse me, that's an integral part of being able to get out, to move, to do something.
I think that I'm thinking about my own journey as a scapegoat, and I'm thinking about how important validation and mirroring were for me in order for me to leave. And I'm wondering why now?
Why now?
Can you tell them why now?
Well, I think it's timely information for any period. So if you're watching this from the future, you have a time machine to go back in the past. Like, it's just kind of information for people to use across a lifetime. I think the reference that we used in an earlier recording of this podcast is Leviticus, and how like the story goes back even that far, right? Of like people having to literally like find a way to like set boundaries in their system, or people finding a way to get out of their roles to be able to show up authentically and be themselves. I feel like I'm losing the point.
No, I think you're right there. I think you're right there.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
just go ahead and stay.
Yeah. And I think that right now, with what's going on around the world, what's going on around your neck of the woods, our neck of the woods, in the country, people are having this weird experience where they're not sure if it's time for them to go, if it's time for them to leave and try something different.
Right. So I guess, the personal is political. And so what I notice in therapy is people are talking about what it's like for them to be a scapegoat in their individual system, and then what it's like for them to be a scapegoat in the larger system. And I think it's important to say we're going to be talking about both of those things, and we're going to toggle back and forth, I guess is the right way to say it, between those two windows.
They're exchangeable. They're, the bigger system influences the smaller system and vice versa. So what does it look like for you to be aware that like this isn't just maybe one topic for you? Because if you're a scapegoat in one instance, I'm betting that you're a scapegoat in a lot of other instances.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
The personal is political. That's true.
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking again, I guess honing down in about what is a scapegoat, right?
Uh-huh. Hmm.
And so I would say that when I'm talking about what you said, you know, about Leviticus,
Uh-huh.
and I'm thinking about how in the Old Testament,
Hmm.
right, before Jesus came to be the ultimate scapegoat for humanity,
Hmm. Sure.
right, there was this practice
Hmm.
that people would do where they would pin
Hmm.
all of their sins onto a goat
Yes.
and send the goat out into the wilderness,
Hmm.
and how even now there's this aspect of being a scapegoat that's incredibly lonely,
Hmm.
and about how you have to go through this exile.
Yep.
And I'm thinking about how uh, scary it is when you're in a system
Hmm.
and the system isn't working for you no
Yep.
matter what you do,
Yep. Yep.
and how you kind of like get to this place where you're like, I don't know what to do, but this isn't working,
Hmm.
and you feel like you have to leave.
Uh-huh. Like there's no other option. You've tried all the options and like that's what's left.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's a hard place to reach, and it's really hard to be honest to get people like into recognizing that that's the role that they're in, because I think that we're so gaslit in our experiences, and we crave like a connection and we crave community, but like we're ostracized from it, and the communities that we're a part of, they're not validating our material reality.
Hmm.
So when you're interacting with someone that's validating you for the first time, you're so used to people kind of like looking at you like you are not completely there,
Hmm.
and you're like, no, this can't actually be what's happening. Like someone's validating me, so like this person must also be wrong, and like, there must also be something wrong with this person.
You
Uh
mean
huh.
the lack of trust?
The lack of trust, right? There's
Uh-huh.
like if you're mirroring like the healthier positive aspects back to me, like sometimes I'm like, are you a safe person? Because everyone else has been so unsafe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's just like how like the process of like getting yourself unstuck is really hard. It's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I think I'm like, as a teacher,
Hmm.
I'm thinking about this and I'm really trying to scaffold people, just in case anybody who's, coming across this doesn't really still understand what a scapegoat is.
Sure.
And so I'm thinking about like, how do we get from what was happening? You brought up something that was really relevant earlier. You were talking about Leviticus and
Hmm.
the goat going out. Um, and I'm thinking about how long ago that was.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking about the story of humanity, right? Thinking about sapiens.
Hmm.
And so when I'm thinking about sapiens, I'm thinking about how we still seem to have this very primitive practice
Uh-huh.
as a society and as humans, right?
Hmm.
And so the primitive practice is that just like a group of people, a village,
Hmm.
would do this thing of putting all of their sins
Hmm.
on one group of people. Right now, we still do that in families.
Yeah.
And there are some people who are in a family system
Hmm.
that end up having everybody in the family throw everything negative
Hmm.
on them,
Yeah.
and they are everything that goes wrong in the family,
Yeah.
everything that goes bad in the family
Hmm.
is going to be put on one person.
Yes.
And that one person is the
Hmm.
person who is the scapegoat in the family.
Yes.
And that one person is the one who is going to probably come into therapy because they're confused and they're stuck.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And the other thing about it that's making it confusing that I'm hearing about what you're saying is this thing where people are, when they become the scapegoat and
Hmm.
they've received all of this negative projection, all of this people saying, well, I'm not going to think anything about myself. I'm just going to throw everything on this person.
Hmm.
The other part of the role is that you have to give your positive qualities off to other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, how that's also a part that makes it really challenging
Mhm.
to get out of the role, because when people are coming into therapy
Mhm.
or when they're doing whatever they're doing, because I don't think therapy is the only way to get out of being a scapegoat.
Mhm.
When they're doing whatever they're doing, it's like they don't want to uh, accept, or they can't accept, not they don't want to, they can't accept anything positive about themselves,
Mhm.
because they have been taught as part of this role for them to put everything that positive about themselves and that they do on other people.
Yeah. 100%.
So it becomes like uh, becoming an scapegoat and leaving the system
Mhm.
becomes like also a spiritual practice,
Mhm.
because you're learning how to take what's yours and give back what's not yours.
Mhm.
And you're actually doing this really mature process of, I'm going to take back all my positive qualities and I'm going to give back to these people their own negative qualities.
Mhm.
And that's really challenging. It's a big job.
It's a big job, and it's a job where the scapegoat is usually in the system the person that's like kind of keeping everybody together. And they're not keeping everybody together in a way where people are acknowledging it. They're keeping people together because, like, if you can project onto the scapegoat, and we can pretend like we don't have any negative qualities, we can continue to go by and like not be in reality, and like we can keep everything functioning.
Yeah, so you
Yeah,
become the person, I love that. So you become the person that's in reality in order to support everybody else being in
and
non-reality.
non-reality.
Mhm,
Yeah, and it's
mhm.
so interesting because when you think about what it means to be in this role, it's the combination of keeping everyone together, but also people telling you that you're worthless, you're no good, you don't contribute anything to what we're doing. But it's also this really confusing place when you've had this abuse of feeling not worthy, and then if you leave the system, one of the things that often happens is the system starts to crumble and fall apart. So you start to like understand how important and how integral you are in the system.
Yeah, but then you feel all this shame and guilt for leaving, even though you were there and you were pushed out anyway. And it's like, I don't know, it feels like for me that the whole thing is, no, we just want you to stay in the wilderness. No, actually, you can't, you need to stay in this very specific wilderness. You need to stay in this yard that we've defined as the wilderness. You can't go too far. We're not going to let you in. But also, you're not allowed to go too far, because we need to be able to have you come back so we can keep on putting all of this stuff on you, or else you got to just die in the wilderness so we can get a new scapegoat.
It's forced loneliness.
Uh-huh, uh-huh,
Uh-huh.
and so then you're, like, trying to, um, you get so exhausted that you start trying to find something new.
Hmm.
You start wanting to find, a new place to go and new people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
Well, the other thing that I think makes it complicated is not only do you have the desire to find new people and places, but like a lot of times the person that is scapegoating you has been so abusive, you feel like this extreme loyalty
Mhm.
to the group that you're a scapegoat in.
Yeah, it's a loyalty bind,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's a constant loyalty bind between yourself and the other person.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Uh-huh. So like, do I like choose myself and become a free person, even though everyone's telling me that when I choose myself, I'm being selfish and I'm a bad person? And like, do I accept that I'm a bad person if I leave? Like, what like what are the next steps? And I think that that's where I got stuck for a long time.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm. Well, and also, like, isn't there just a way, because you've been made to feel that you can and should fix everything,
yeah.
that you're like this sense of over responsibility. And so you feel like, I think so much of the time when people come in, and when I'm thinking about when I went into therapy,
Hmm.
it wasn't about how do I get out, actually, for me.
Hmm.
For me, when I came in, it was about how do I be a better fixer.
Yeah, like what's wrong with me that I can't like do all these different things that everyone's requiring of me? Like, am I broken? What's going on?
Uh huh. And it's just like the huge amount of gaslighting that's involved.
Hmm.
And I'm just thinking about how I think people underestimate how powerful scapegoating is as an interaction.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking about how this takes like root in larger societies, when you have some people that just are not going to accept responsibility for anything. and other people that
Assume responsibility for
assume
everything.
responsibility for everything, and how this can just get really jacked up
Mhm,
in a society.
mhm,
And I think the problem is that the people who are doing the scapegoating,
mhm.
the people who are whatever you want to call it, a narcissist,
You said
people with external locus of control, abusers, when they're doing this thing where they're like, everything I do is right and everything you do is wrong,
mhm,
then it becomes this, and
mhm,
it's also like a silent thing. It's the power dynamic gets deeper and deeper because you, the person who has been chosen,
mhm,
doesn't really know what's happening.
mhm,
And then the other problem is the people who aren't looking at themselves,
mhm,
they it's like they get stuck and they get weaker
mhm,
because they can't get better. You're getting stronger and stronger and healthier because you're starting to look at yourself where you've been looking at yourself the whole time and you're trying to improve, and eventually, you read all these books, you study, you go to therapy, all of this stuff,
mhm,
and they are left with no personal insight, so they're also in their own personal hell
uh-huh,
because they can't figure out exactly why their life is going the way that it's going,
mhm,
and they don't feel that they have any control over their life
mhm,
because they start to come to believe, they become entitled to believe that everything is about you
uh-huh,
and that it's all your fault.
mhm, mhm,
And you actually end up being the one that's empowered
mhm.
by realizing that, hey, I did this wrong, or this is what I could do different, and going and improving yourself.
No, what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and I'll say this time and time again, and I actually tell my clients this, like, I out of all the roles in the system, would much prefer being the scapegoat, and it's not that I'm endorsing the abuse that I experienced, it's not that I think it was fun or that it was a good time.
No.
What I find time and time again in my practice is that the scapegoat is usually the person that has the most resilience
Yeah.
and has the most bounce back, and, like, because you've had to struggle, you've had to figure out ways to survive, and it just goes to show that, like, I think that the society that we're living in, the family systems that we're living in, like the appearance and like how things look are more important than the actual function of like how we're relating to each other or whatever is happening. And um, while the scapegoat is handed like this really shitty, like kind of like task to figure out how to navigate, it often leaves us feeling like stronger when we get out of it and like more self reliant and with confidence once you start to like go back into yourself and figure out who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking about how much resilience it's taking for us to um, do this podcast and to talk about the things that are happening,
Uh-huh.
And I'm noticing myself even still being kind of conditioned from being a scapegoat
Yeah.
and being afraid to name things,
Yeah.
and name these systems of power and oppression
Mm-hmm.
that keep people in these scapegoated roles. I've talked a lot about the family, but I'm thinking about right now how, like, we're in late stage capitalism
Mm-hmm.
and how we're in a system that's failing,
Yeah.
and how, as we're in the system that's failing, people are trying to do what they've learned how to do, which is keep this really rigid control,
Uh-huh.
and how we're actually having to do what Trisha Hersey talks about,
Mm-hmm.
in rest is resistance. And I'm thinking about how um, rest is resistance really helped me understand at a spiritual level
Mm-hmm.
what it is for me to leave the role of scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
And it means to rest from supporting other people,
Yep.
and to rest from keeping people from experiencing their consequences, right? And so, how it's been this really exhausting journey, because we'll talk more about how each of us became a scapegoat throughout, this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not in this episode, but throughout this podcast, we'll talk a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But how, like, I was so primed to be a scapegoat for so long, and how because of that, because I was primed that way in my family as a Black person assigned female at birth, and how my family just mimicked what society was doing, which is making me be the scapegoat. Right, Black AFABs are supposed to hold up the world. We're supposed to hold up the earth, and we're supposed to take the blame for everything being wrong in life. So now I'm talking more explicitly. And maybe this is why we've had a hard time really coming up with what to say, because we've been trying to talk around it. But I think we got to tell the truth here. So yeah, I think like I had to, like, my work is actually learning how to rest, and how my actual resistance at this time is learning how to rest. And that means actually taking a rest. I think people are hearing it, and I think they're getting a little bit of understanding that rest is resistance. But I think that, again, the personal is political, which is why I'm doing therapy with folks. And I think like you also have to start taking apart, what is it for me to rest in this system as a person who's marginalized, and also like what is it for me to rest in my family system. So if you're not sure if you're marginalized, Anj, what do you think is marginalized? How would you say that, what that means?
You know, the best way I can describe it is actually from a somatic standpoint. It's this feeling of being anxious all the time. It's this feeling of being scared all the time. It's this feeling of being hypervigilant and feeling like you can't actually let your body relax and just like to be in it. It's like this feeling of uh, knowing something is wrong and like having all these alarm systems go off in your body and not knowing how to calm the alarm system and being like, well, I'm the problem. It must be my anxiety. So that means that like I'm doing something wrong. It's my fatigue. It's my whatever way it shows up in the world. So like everything that I'm doing is incorrect.
You're talking about the shame part of it.
The shame. That's yes, it's the shame part of it, right? Like I am having to kind of like absorb all the shame from the people around me that are not acting appropriately. I'm having to absorb the shame of the people who don't want to own their own insecurities. I'm having to hold on to all these different things, and I can feel my shoulders raise. I can feel my like stomach start to bubble up. Like it's like this very visceral experience of like not being able to be seen or heard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really powerful.
thank you. I do. I can.
I think that I guess with that shame piece
Hmm.
and that feeling of what it's like to be marginalized,
Hmm.
and that feeling of what it's like to be a scapegoat
Hmm.
is like, I guess the next question is, that to me is like talking about how being a scapegoat is your own personal hell.
Hmm.
And I think about, I guess, like, what does it mean to be in that hell?
Ooh. I think the worst part about being in the hell is not knowing that you're in it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like watching The Good Place, and they're like, "Ah, we're in
Oh,
the
I love
bad
that. I love
place,"
that.
right?
Uh huh.
Like you're going around, like things are not working. You can't figure out why you're always in chaos. You can't figure out like whether or not you're a good person. You can't figure out if the decisions that you're making are correct. Everything seems like it's your fault. Like you step on a crack and your mama breaks her back and you're like, "Oh, well, I did that." So like I
Uh-huh.
have to find a way to like self-punish.
Yeah.
Like it's all these different ways of like
Feeling over responsible and hyper vigilant.
feeling over responsible and hyper vigilant, and you're
Mm-hmm.
both everyone's therapist, but you're also the friend that can't get their shit together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're in a double bind.
Uh-huh.
And it seems like you're constantly in a double bind.
Hmm.
And there's all this anxiety by being constantly in a double bind. That's one of the ways that I know that people are scapegoats,
Uh-huh.
is if they're experiencing a lot of anxiety. Because I think that people who, um, I think a lot of times people will come in and they'll be like, "How do you know that I'm the one that's a scapegoat?" Because they've been so um, conditioned to believe, hey, even though I can see that the sky is blue, you're telling me it's purple. Everyone else in the system has agreed that it's purple, so therefore it's purple. So they don't really believe you when you're telling them, hey, it's not you, you're not the problem. The sky is actually blue, right? And so what happens a lot of times is it feels like people um, don't know that they're the scapegoat. And one of the things that I tell them is like, one of the signs of being a scapegoat is that you have a lot of anxiety. Because if we've said that there are like basically roughly two different ways of thinking in the world, which is one person, right, M. Scott Peck talking about one group of people think that everything is external locus of control, and then there's another group of people that think everything is internal and it's their fault and everything's happening because of them. Then the people who think that everything's happening because of them, they're gonna feel more anxiety because the other people don't feel anxiety because they're projecting everything out onto you, right? And so everybody else is calm and they're going, why do you act so crazy? Why are you tired? Why are you stressed out? So that's the other problem, right? Is you come into these systems and you're supposed to act like uh, everything's fine, and you're trying to get help. And the problem is therapy is part of the system. So if you don't have a therapist that looks like you or understands your lived experience, they're actually pathologizing you even more. Right? Which is how so many people come in, and it's sure how I have experienced it. And really, I don't know if I would have been able to come to reality fully without, you know, being able to actually get validation and mirroring in real life.
You know, it's interesting as you're talking about that. I think about the different times that people have given me validation and how it's been helpful and it gets me a step further. But there's always something in the system that brings me back 2 steps, and it's just like, so here's this progress, and then I'm way regressing, and I'm just like, okay, so like it's like this weird back and forth, and it makes you feel unstable. And the first time that I felt fully mirrored was actually in our relationship with each other, because who other than a Black AFAB queer person can like understand your marginalization and your scapegoatedness, and like when something happens can say, no, that's some bullshit. They shouldn't have done X, Y, and Z. Right? Like,
well, sure, because what you're naming is that, having all of these multiple identities is what makes you the ultimate scapegoat, right? So when you think about, I'm going back to the thing where we talked about marginalization and your identity not being the main one, it's put into the margins, right? And so when you're thinking about what are the things that make somebody often likely to be a scapegoat, somebody who's highly sensitive, somebody who's neurodivergent in some kind of way, somebody who is already culturally decided to be the scapegoat, right? Which is a Black person assigned female at birth, and how the queerness plays into that. So you have all these multiple marginalized identities, and you're going right, and you're talking the disability, right? And then you're getting more disabled by being in the system because having all that projection makes you stressed out
and affects your health.
So when you're talking about all this and you're talking about somebody being somebody who carries these identities, you understand being a scapegoat so well, because what's happening is every single place you go, you are the scapegoat. You are always the scapegoat in the system. And so you go to these different therapists and you're saying that you feel like you would take steps back. And I don't think you take steps back. I think that what happens is that so few of us as scapegoats make it out that, and I think that's probably why we have to be doing this right now the way we're doing it. Because it's rare for people to get out, and it's rare for people to get out enough to be able to become a clinician, right? And so you when they're as marginalized as we are. And so you have not enough clinicians out there to meet people's needs. And the system is certainly not making it easier for people to get that, right? And so you get out and you go to a therapist or you go to a setting or you read a book, and each one is validating a little different part of your identity, but none of them are validating the whole thing. And so you get a little bit stuck
Yeah.
because it's almost like, even in the therapeutic practice, sometimes you end up being made into a scapegoat.
Mhm.
And I think it's because the complexes are dynamic
Mhm.
and you are participating in it
Mhm.
because you are pushing all of your positive qualities onto the other person, right?
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
I think that's a good place for us to stop.
I think so too. All right.
We'll
Well,
see
thank
y'all
you for
soon.
listening. Yeah. See y'all soon. Thank you for listening and let us know what you think. We'll see you next time.